Happy Monday afternoon, evening, night. We don't know where you are, but wherever you are, it's time to talk about the box office with Mr. Dan Murrell.
Hello.
Let's look at those charts. It's all about incredible dollar signs and conspiracy theories this week.
Oh,
it's the title of this episode.
We have broken records. We have 2 box office mysteries to try to unravel. We have so much to look at, but of course,
let's dive in with the record-breaking.
Another record-breaking weekend. Records are just falling all over the place this summer. It's crazy. Incredibles 2 outperformed even the outsized expectations of some people. $182 million debut. That is the 8th best opening weekend of all time, edging out Captain America: Civil War. Roth, in one weekend, it outgrossed last summer's Pixar film Cars 3. Its entire domestic run, it beat in one weekend, along with A Bug's Life and The Good Dinosaur. So safe to say, Pixar and Disney are very happy this week.
They're very happy this week, and we had predicted that it would, in fact, earn $1 bajillion, which it absolutely did, and it beat its own record with Finding Dory.
That's right. It is the now Incredibles 2, the top opening ever domestically for an animated film. Pixar beat their own record, which they set 2 summers ago, with Finding Dory. It's the new mark for an animated film opening weekend. Pixar movies, by the way, if you look at the top 10 highest opening weekends for animated films of all time domestically, Pixar movies now comprise 5 of those top 10. As a matter of fact, The Incredibles, it's not only the top animated film ever, it's the only animated film to ever be in the top opening weekends ever for any movie, live action or domestic. The next movie down is Finding Dory at number 26. So Incredibles 2 didn't just have a great opening for an animated film. It had an unprecedented opening in the sense that it is up there where no animated movie has gone before. Star Trek reference not intended, but welcome. It punched above. When you're looking at the appeal of this movie, it's obvious. It punched above the weight class of just the animation format.
Yeah, it broke into
just
the top 10.
A mainstream hit that happens to be animated. To that point, looking at it, it's the top animated film, but just as a superhero film, it scored enough to be as one of the top 5 highest grossing superhero films ever of any format. It's Incredibles and 4 Marvels. I just call them Marvels. It is the 3rd film this year to be one of the top 5 superhero film openings of all time. And again, if you're looking at the top 10 superhero movie openings domestically, Disney, Marvel, Pixar, they now own the top 7.
The mouse is 10. Not sad today. And now they had one rough one with Solo, but they're back on top with this. We had talked about this throughout the course of talking about the box office this year, and I was incredibly bullish about Incredibles 2 due to the nostalgia factor on one end, the appetite for superhero movies, the strength of the first movie, and you know what? It has the good fortune of being an incredibly well-received critical film, very well received by audiences. It's a good movie. It's a great time at the theater. It came at a good time.
It did.
For family films, it's going to come in with a little competition, maybe with Jurassic World 2 next week, but I'll be honest, I think you and I are going to agree Jurassic World is not going to come close because it's just too dour. It's a happy film.
We'll talk about what Jurassic World did because it made a lot of noise overseas, particularly in China this last weekend. But that is going to be the setup for this weekend, is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom opening here in North America. And I'm with you. Just having seen the film, and maybe we'll be proven wrong, but having seen the film, I don't think you're going to see the opening like you saw with the last one.
I don't think so either.
Number one, because the last one was just such a phenomenally high opening. Kind of like this movie, it outdid every expectation that people had of it. And then I'm kind of with you. It's just it feels different from the first one. It doesn't feel as vibrant. It's not as kind of like, throw your popcorn at the screen and stand up and cheer as the last one was. So I'm going to be very interested to see how Incredibles 2 holds up against Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and then how that opening holds up against the one 3 years ago that shocked so many people.
When we talk about Jurassic World, a lot of times we talk about the idea that you don't have to sort of be soulless to be a big popcorn movie blockbuster, right? And I think that The Incredibles 2 is proving that.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, it's going up against something that the last movie was, the thing that people liked about it, that it was so cartoonish, live action cartoony, heightened, very silly.
Right.
This movie is not that. It's longer, it's slower, it's slowly paced, it's a bit gloomy.
It's a little more grounded,
And conversely, The Incredibles 2 has great characterization, has a good story, family dynamics. It moves very quickly. It's a fun movie to watch. That's the one that you would want to go see a few times at the theater.
And it has a raccoon in it.
It's got a really cute
Here's what Disney has learned. If you want to have a great opening weekend, put a raccoon in your movie.
You gotta put a raccoon.
That's really the thing to learn from this summer.
You know what we've learned about raccoons in general this summer? We have strong feelings about raccoons because I was up watching that, what was it, the NPR raccoon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh, yes, that's right.
I was watching that raccoon all night long, people. I stayed up till 2 a.m. until it made it to the roof.
And yes, we know that Rocket is not technically a raccoon, as is the running joke, but still, the point remains.
The point remains,
yes.
Use a raccoon. You can always use a little raccoon. Ocean's 8 did not do very poorly this weekend. It did okay
Ocean's
for
8
itself.
dropped 54%. Yeah. That's not a great hold, but it's not a huge drop either, grossing just under $19 million. It's still performing just ahead of the original Ocean's 11 remake, unadjusted for inflation. That remake ultimately grossed $183 million. I would not necessarily expect, though, Ocean's 8 to reach that height, even though it's currently pacing ahead, only because Ocean's 11 had the holiday season. It was a holiday release. Ocean's 8 doesn't have that. Already huge competition, more huge competition. So I would not expect Ocean's 8 to get to that $183 million number, but it's easily going to get over $100 million, which I think is good. It's good news for Warner Brothers. I think it's performing well, and I think it's going to be a bit of a gamble for them, and I think it's going to pay off.
Warner Brothers feels like Tag, which didn't do as well as they might have liked this weekend, might actually be like Game Night, and over time actually have some legs. But here was something that I thought was interesting, is that Tag actually, women were responding to it. I think it was 51% of the audience was women, so might have pulled something away, theoretically, from Ocean's 8.
Yeah. I mean, that's a studio going against a studio. You don't see that as often, where a studio will release two major films back-to-back weeks.
I really think they thought it was like Boys and Girls, and it doesn't work that way.
Tag opened just under $15 million. Production budget is about double that, so that's what Warner Brothers is hoping, that it's going to perform like Game Night, or even like Life of the Party, which we saw open at the very beginning of the summer, where you have an okay opening, but it has legs.
Yeah.
Apple juice.
All of the juice.
All of the juice. Hoping that it has legs and that it's going to kind of leg out and perform a little bit better. Solo and speaking of legging out, Solo, Star Wars Story, and Deadpool 2 rounding out the top 5. They both had pretty decent holds from last weekend. They both dropped less than 40%. And if you're Disney, that's kind of one of the only silver linings on Solo, is that it's not absolutely cratering, and as it extends its box office run, its holds are less than 50%, at least this week, and they're going to hope week over week. Whereas the bottom could have truly, definitely just completely fallen out of it. Still not good news on any front for it as far as box office goes. That's why I say literally the only silver lining is that it has not completely crumbled and collapsed. It
is, for what it is, for the franchise that it is. It's a bomb.
Yeah,
it's a bomb.
It is. Yeah.
I will say, if you guys are looking for an enjoyable movie to see this weekend, if you're not going to see The Incredibles for a third time or what have you, Tag, I was surprised, was reviewed so lukewarmly. I thought it was enjoyable.
I also enjoyed Tag. It was in the 50%-ish range on Rotten Tomatoes. I'd like to see those average ratings, because I think that might be a case where mixed to positive reviews kind of show up a little bit more depressed than maybe the reaction actually was, because I didn't think Tag was a great movie by any means, but I enjoyed it. If I'd reviewed it, I would have recommended it. So that's one of those where I think the binary system might have hurt it a little bit, because it's one of those that's kind of like, it was good, I'd enjoy it, but that might not bear out when you're looking at it strictly on a good-bad system. I think some of those mixed reviews maybe tilted negative, and that didn't read so well. So that's another case where I think, as you're looking at reviews and researching, a little more nuance might help, because the movies like Tag that are pretty good, I'd recommend it. I had a good time.
Yeah,
that can be a little difficult to read on the review sites sometimes.
If you're thinking of movies, one movie to see for you and your family this weekend, however, I would say you could wait for Tag. At home, Superfly was a movie I did not enjoy at all.
Really? I didn't get a chance to see Superfly.
And it did not perform.
It did not perform well. It opened outside the top 5 at number 6. It's grossed a little over $9 million. It actually kind of got a jump on the opening weekend by opening last Wednesday. It is a low-budget movie. It was budgeted about $16 million. At the same time, I think Sony was probably hoping for more. This is crazy, though. That movie went into production this year.
Yeah.
Superfly started production in January and is now in theaters. I think that they hoped that it might tap into the box office market a little bit better because, it didn't really pick up any momentum as the weekend went on. And it looks like it, unless word of mouth really takes over, it's not going to really be a breakout hit.
Director X, who directed the film, is a music video director, typically speaking. It is, again, let me amend that. It's not like a terrible movie at all. This is not a 50 Shades of Anything situation. It is very much feels like a first-time director who's a music video director. So there's some very interesting high points in the movie.
Yeah.
He's not able to thread the needle quite, but I feel like there's potential there. But again, you do not need to spend your money to see that in the theater, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like an extended music video moments. Hereditary, which we have championed.
Yes, we
and
have.
People have very mixed feelings about, is still making money for A24.
Hereditary survived. We talked about particularly its poor cinema score last week, which if you want to know more about cinema score, you can check out a video that came out this Saturday.
And you absolutely should. It's a great video, very informative, very interesting.
We talked about the typical horror movie drop, the poor cinema score that Hereditary had. A lot of times with a movie that scores that poorly and in the horror genre, you will see an opening weekend drop of 60 to sometimes 70% because the whole market, everyone that's going to go see it goes out, they hate it, they don't go back. Hereditary held a little better. It dropped about 50% in its second week, which given how a lot of times combined with the bad scores in the genre, that's not a terrible drop. It'll soon pass Moonlight to become A24's second highest grossing release. It'll be just under Lady Bird. So
Oscar-winning Moonlight.
So, I think that there was definitely some bad word of mouth, obviously, given how some of the audiences reacted to the film. But at the same time, I think there's some positive word of mouth at work that maybe prevented it from absolutely falling out of the basement this weekend.
Do you know what else I think? I wonder if because it is so divided, the response is so divided, if that will up the ante on the curiosity factor. And you guys let me know in comments if you haven't seen it yet, if you're more likely to see it because you were seeing this split of a reaction to the movie.
Yep.
And you got to go, I need to know for myself. Speaking of our Disney overlords, which we were previously,
yes.
Avengers.
Infinity War dropped to 8th place, but Roth, it seems like every weekend or every week now on the show, it's done something different. And of course, it's done something yet again. We talked last week about how as we were sitting in these chairs last Monday that it was passing the $2 billion international mark. Well, it did. Also, a couple of things on the domestic front, if we're looking at it, where it ranks now in the top domestic grossers, it is right there at number 4. It is past Titanic. Now, the one note domestically, and I've been tracking this the last couple of weeks, if you look at it day by day at the daily box office now, for the very first time, Black Panther at this point in its run is now outpacing Infinity War, meaning at the same, 4 weeks or 5 weeks into this run, Infinity War, started out making more money every day than Black Panther had. It had a bigger opening weekend. It was doing bigger numbers. Now, as we get deeper into the run, at this point in its release, Black Panther was making more money day by day than Infinity War is at this point. So what that tells me is more than likely, even though Infinity War had a head start as far as the opening weekend, it is going to probably end up with a very close, maybe even almost identical gross to Black Panther, but I don't think it is going to top it domestically.
I don't think
it's going to be
is.
underneath it domestically. Yeah. But
ahead internationally, but beneath it domestically, which, Disney's winning either way.
Yeah. Speaking of, let's look at the top worldwide grossers of all time. Who knows? This is such a crazy, like I said, a record gets broken every week now, and these numbers are just becoming nuts. As you see, Infinity War is over $2 billion. And now the number that we're watching as far as the worldwide gross is Star Wars The Force Awakens in that number 3 spot. Currently, Infinity War is just under $40 million away from eclipsing the global gross of Star Wars The Force Awakens. We talked last week. It got an extended release window in China. That helps its prospects. It did about $11 million in business its last full week. It's going to probably cut about in half, maybe a little bit less. So it's going to do about $6 million, $7 million, maybe more here in the North America the next week. So, $40 million, when you're talking about $2 billion, doesn't sound like a lot, but given where Infinity War is in its release cycle, it's really going to depend. It could literally be dollars and cents as far as if it's going to eclipse The Force Awakens, but it's got a shot.
Well, no matter what, the Mouse House is virtually bleeding cash. Bleeding cash. The one missed this year again is Solo.
And another one that we're going to talk about in a new segment that we're doing.
Exactly, called Who Done It? And why?
We got some box office mysteries.
We have some real mysteries this week.
Two this
really,
weekend.
there's two,
Like,
and
two
this is like a
legitimate
real
mysteries.
thing. This is some stuff. So let's break it down. Let's talk about first Gotti.
Gotti.
Okay, and
Yes.
then the second not so great hit for Disney this year, certainly not as big of a loss as Solo, but A Wrinkle in Time. Let's do Gotti first.
Yes, Gotti, which if you don't know, is a new John Travolta movie. This movie has been being made and being released forever. There's a studio that had it. They were going to put it direct to video. They bought the rights back. MoviePass eventually ended up partnering with it and releasing it. Supposedly about 40% of its business this weekend came from MoviePass, which is weird because they bought the movie and then they themselves subsidized people going to see it, which means they paid for it twice.
Yeah, the business model was basically pay for it 2 times. It just anyway, that's a
bizarre.
whole other video that we'll do later.
It opened in 12th place. It made $1.6 million.
It was on 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
0% on Rotten Tomatoes. It opened on 500 screens. However, there's something strange that people started noticing, which is that if you look at that 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, if you look at the number next to it, the audience rating, it's surprisingly good, 78%. However, what people started noticing was, again, this movie made $1.6 million and it played on 500 screens. This weekend, it got 6,889 user ratings. Well, look at The Incredibles 2. Also opened this weekend, opened on over 4,400 screens. It did many hundreds of times that box office. Look at how many user ratings there are for Incredibles 2, 7,393. How is it that a movie that opened on almost 10 times as many screens and did, 100 times the box office of Gotti has almost the exact same number of user ratings?
So we were
Isn't that
questioning
interesting?
why, like who has the influence? Like usually this would happen around something that has a rabid fan base, right?
Yes.
Where they kind of rally the fans in order to skew a rating for X, Y, and Z reason. However, there is not a rabid fan base around
I don't know if there's a lot of Gotti heads.
I know Gottites out there.
And it's not just Incredibles 2. If you look at Ocean's 8, it actually, Ocean's 8, again, it's done $80 million. It was the #1 movie last weekend. If you look at how many user ratings that one has on Rotten Tomatoes, and we're not talking about what the rating is, just look at the numbers, although it is also a little suspicious that 80% of rating on approval rating from audiences on a movie with a 0% tomato meter score. But if you look at how many ratings Ocean's 8 has, it's got 2,000 fewer, and that's a movie that's been in theaters for a week longer. Again, opened on far more screens, has done far more box office. So I'm not here to solve these mysteries. I'm just here to bring them up. But who these audience members are that are going to Rotten Tomatoes and giving the user ratings to Gotti, it's not what the percentage is. It's the number that movie has compared to
it's
other
also the
movies.
percentage because the divergence
the other percentage is a little
zero. It's like I haven't seen it yet, but for it truly, I checked it out on Rotten Tomatoes because I thought, oh, maybe it's only just a handful of critics, but no,
Nope.
It's enough that truly to get a 0% with that many critics weighing in, it's really got to be a dog.
That's really not good.
It's really got to be a woofer. And so
that's our first mystery:
yeah.
is who are these
done it?
audience members
Who done
running
it?
the numbers on Gotti, and why did more people, almost as many people, run to rate Gotti as
Is there
went
a
to rate
really big
Incredibles
John
2?
Travolta fan base out there that we're just not aware of? I don't know. You tell us. The Entourage fan base because of supporting director. I don't know. Unclear.
Maybe. Who knows?
But A Wrinkle in Time, which was Disney's
is
other
a weird one.
disappointment this year,
Yes.
box office wise.
The Wrinkle in Time had. This was weird for a number of reasons. It had a massive surge in business this weekend. Keeping in mind that The Wrinkle in Time came out on Blu-ray and home video almost 2 weeks ago and was on streaming before that. So this is a movie that is not just coming out, has been available for home consumption. The Blu-ray has sold well. It had a 1,500% increase in business this past weekend. It added 88 screens, but that's a very small number of screens to add. It had the 4th highest per screen average of the weekend. I tried to look into this because I thought, maybe they did another push for Father's Day or something like, hey, go back to see A Wrinkle in Time in theaters. I checked the official Disney accounts. I checked the movie's official Twitter account. I checked Ava DuVernay's account, all the stars in the movie. Nobody was pushing a big re-release of A Wrinkle in Time. I didn't see any news articles about them bringing A Wrinkle in Time back into theaters. As a matter of fact, it had a re-expansion back in May. It added over 1,600 theaters, almost a full new re-release, and its business only went up 182% over the previous weekend. This weekend, 1,500%. So
I have a theory.
There are a couple of theories that people have had. I'm curious what your theory is.
Well, my theory, and this is completely anecdotal, I have zero evidence to back this up. And this may not be it at all. But the reason that I saw A Wrinkle in Time bubble back up in the last week or so was Brie Larson talking about it.
Yes.
And sort of in terms of in a conversation, a larger conversation about criticism. That her estimation that was perhaps the film had been poorly received because those people that may connect to the movie weren't the ones that were reviewing it. I am not going to weigh in on that piece of what she had to say, but that's the only thing where I saw A Wrinkle in Time bubble up. So it may have put it back in people's, or going to see it with The Incredibles in a double feature.
That's what I think. I was trying to find screens where Wrinkle in Time was playing, and it was very difficult for me to find. But I did find reference to a few places that were running Incredibles 2 and A Wrinkle in Time as a double feature. And I think that may have been what happened. And I legitimately have tried to, I just ran out of time. I've been trying to research how this happened because, again, a 1,500% increase week to week, like that's
massive.
Something that an indie movie does when it goes from like 1 theater to 7 theaters and goes from making like, $10,000 to $100,000. Like that, it's almost unheard of for a movie to do that. And so I was looking for what is that mitigating factor, and it didn't seem to be some kind of grassroots effort. It didn't seem to be some kind of push from its stars. It didn't seem to be some kind of push from the studio. I think that there are places where Disney packaged the movie with Incredibles 2 and sold it as a double feature. I think that might explain why there was such a huge increase in business. And I think I might know why they did it, which is that Wrinkle in Time was very, very close to the $100 million mark at the box office. As a matter of fact, and this is another strange thing for Disney, Disney notoriously on Sunday underreports how much their movies made. For example,
so that they can look like a big hero come Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, it overperformed. We're so surprised.
For example, when the numbers that most people run with that come out on Sunday are the estimates. Those are studio estimates. That's the studio saying, we've looked at the numbers. We know what Friday and Saturday are, or some of Saturday, and based on what we think it's going to do Sunday, we estimate that the movie's going to make blah. So the number that came out yesterday was studio estimates. Incredibles makes $180 million. That $180 million figure, that comes from Disney. And Incredibles ended up making $182 million. Disney notoriously will underreport what a movie makes so that when the actual numbers come in, it over exceeds
exactly. It bursts expectations every time. It's a smart move,
marketing wise. Again, strangely, given that Disney does that, yesterday when they reported the estimates for A Wrinkle in Time, it took the domestic gross of the film over $100 million. And like I said, most people run with the estimates and they don't report on the actuals. And so yesterday and today I saw there was a lot of buzz and a lot of press coverage around the fact that A Wrinkle in Time had broken $100 million. And I don't think the movie shouldn't. I think that Ava DuVernay is a great director.
She is.
The movie may not have performed to expectations, but I think that there's a lot of good in her directing a movie that breaks that barrier. There's some historic things about her directing a movie that breaks that barrier.
And if you haven't seen her other work, just really quickly, because I have to. If you haven't seen Selma, if you haven't seen 13th, if you haven't seen her other work, if you haven't seen Queen Sugar, please do check it out. She is a tremendous, truly incredible talent. Whatever you think of A Wrinkle in Time, she is an incredibly talented director. Please continue.
However, they actually over-reported what A Wrinkle in Time had made. And when the actuals came in today, looking at where A Wrinkle in Time is, we'll see the actual number here in a minute, it's actually about $93,000 short of $100 million. So it hasn't yet quite eclipsed that $100 million mark. So I do think that they strategically re-released A Wrinkle in Time as a double feature with Incredibles 2, knowing that it was going to draw a lot of people. I don't know how that works when you sell a double feature, how much of that box office gets reported. But to me, it does explain why you have a 1,500% increase in business, because you had a huge Disney movie that just had the 8th biggest opening of all time. And you're going to put some of those dollars, if you're doing A Wrinkle in Time, toward that movie. So that's why I think they did it. Again, it's unusual for them to over-report a movie's earnings, but that did take it over the $100 million mark. That generated a lot of buzz and heat around the movie. And I think it is still $93,000. I think it's likely it's still going to break $100 million eventually, maybe next weekend. But that was just some unusual activity around it. And again, I had a few people tweet me saying, what is going on with A Wrinkle in Time? It had like just looking at Friday, it had like a 2,000% increase over the other Fridays. Like, what's going on? And I think that there was some strategic programming of that movie with Incredibles 2 to get it over that $100 million mark, because like you said, marketing, that is a very monumental and important mark for any number of reasons, for the director, for the film, that Disney wants to get it over. And I think that's why you're going to see, because Black Panther, I think, is going to end up just shy of $700 million. I think you're going to see sometime later this year, maybe around Oscar time. Yeah. I don't know. I think you're going to see Black Panther come back into theaters, maybe on a limited run, because Disney is going to want to get it, just nudge it, just that little extra edge to push it over $700 million. Because again, symbolically, it will have been the first movie of its kind, really. There are so few movies that have gone over $700 million, and I think they're going to want that little extra push. So it's fun it's weird to look at the numbers and see these anomalies and try to get to the bottom of it, these little mysteries that you try to unravel.
Well, we're endlessly fascinated by Disney and all of their moves. This is the thing, like Disney at this point is considered the hit maker. They can't lose. That wasn't always the case. I know we think that it was, but when I started in this field, one of the very first things that I covered was John Carter. So it wasn't always the case. And I think they want to maintain that reputation, certainly now, certainly as they're in these bidding wars. They want to be seen as a winner every single time and delivering historic events every single time for a number of reasons, because Hollywood is changing drastically. If you want to know more about Disney, we did a video about that, diving into particularly how things are going over at Lucasfilm right now, which is the one area where after Solo, there's perhaps a little bit of uncertainty. There is no uncertainty with The Incredibles 2 per screen.
No, looking at just kind of rounding out the charts and the numbers here. Top per screen, naturally, Incredibles 2, 41,426. That's the highest per screen average for wide release since Infinity War opened back in April. So that's where your big numbers came from. A+ from the audiences on Incredibles 2, which is a great sign for that movie's box office prospects. Like we said, we'll see how it affects Jurassic World. Looking at the domestic top 10 movies, Incredibles 2 debuts just outside the top 5. That'll probably be at least at number 4. Who knows? Maybe at number, at least number 5. It could jump into number, I don't know if it's got $100 million. You know what? I'm going to stop projecting what Incredibles 2 could do, because it had a great opening, and we'll see. It looks like it's destined to top Deadpool 2.
I think it will. I think it's just going to murder. Just really. Yeah. Just do box
number 2 movie
murder.
This summer, you think?
That's saying a lot.
We'll look at the summer. We'll look at the summer chart in a second, and
I think
we'll
it's
try to
certainly a strong possibility. I really, really do. Anyway, domestic. So worldwide.
Worldwide, as I mentioned, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. It is now on the 2018 worldwide box office chart, which is unusual for us here in North America, because usually we get to be on the front side of this, or at least movies that are on this chart we've already seen. However, it is now on the chart at number 9 on the back of a huge $112 million opening weekend in China. That is the 4th largest opening ever there, following Infinity War, Fate of the Furious, and Transformers: The Last Night. So, hey, what are you going to do? Good. That's good news for it already, as it enters North America this weekend, that it opens so well in China. However, this weekend, Incredibles 2 opens in China. And if you'll remember, Roth, when we were talking about Coco last year, Coco made almost $200 million in the Chinese market. Pixar, we'll see if they have broken in and established themselves really as a name there, or if Coco maybe was a bit of a breakout hit compared to some of their other stuff. However, if Incredibles 2 can break out in China, as well as Coco did, if it can continue its success here in North America, then that's great news, not just here, but globally for Pixar and Disney, considering that, you could have now another global superstar brand that we'll have to wait 14 more years for a sequel to.
Yeah, it's been announced, 2032.
Yeah.
Here we go. Summer movie report.
Let's look at this. Yeah, so Roth, let's look at the summer movie report. Let's look at where Incredibles 2 is right now. It's got the number 4 spot. It's just behind Solo. It's going to pass Solo easily. It's about, $102 million behind Deadpool 2. What do you think, Roth? By next weekend, do you think Incredibles 2 will be the number 2 movie of the summer? Or do you think it'll still be The Merc with the Mouth will have just a little bit more time ahead of it?
I mean, so when we were talking about movies of the summer, for sure, it's going to be the number 2 of the summer overall. I think it could, I don't know. I'm not going to make wild predictions just yet. I think by next weekend, so the drop-off would have to be, in order to beat...
If it took about a 50% drop off, they'd be at about $75 million next
and then it would add, that would be to 250. Can you bring up the graphic again?
It need to be, it needs to do about $26 million this week, and then about $75 million next week. That's not undoable.
I'm saying it's doing it.
You think it's going to be the number 2 movie of the summer next week? All right, there you go.
I'm taking that bet. I'm taking your money, Dan Murrell. $5 for a cup of coffee.
That works for me. Hereditary, hey, you know what? It gets a nice token week at number 10 before Jurassic World knocks it off next week.
Poor little controversial Hereditary. Who knew?
I know. And Adrift and Show Dogs are gone. Adrift is back out to sea, and Show Dogs are doing their thing.
Speaking of sea, the number 1 movie of the summer in our hearts is yet to come, but how soon will we get it?
53 days.
Oh, it's so long.
Until the Megalodon.
It's a megalodon.
As a MoviePass subscriber, you see the same trailers over and over again, and I've now seen the trailer for the Meg about 15 times.
And it just keeps getting better.
It just gets better.
I can't wait for that fish to get into my life.
Less than 60 days out from the Meg. This week, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the only major wide release here in North America. We will see how it does stack up to the first one, how it stacks up to Incredibles 2. I love looking at the summer chart now because you're starting to see now sort of the end game as far as where some of these movies might end the summer. You're seeing the big grossers either take their position or not take their position in the top 10. We're just past, believe it or not, Roth, I cannot believe this. We are just past the halfway mark of the summer movie season, but there's still a lot ahead as far as, what's Ant-Man and the Wasp going to have to say about this? Is The Rock going to have a shot at it with Skyscraper? That comes out in about a month. We got Hotel Transylvania 2 coming out in a little while. That's another animated film.
Moneymaker.
It's had some success in a different season, not in the summer. Is it going to do well, or is it just going to get wiped off the map by Pixar? Is the Meg going to swim into that top 10? Mission Impossible is still yet to come out. There's a lot of movies that still have a lot to say.
Of the films that you mentioned, I actually think Mission Impossible has the greatest chance of actually doing some real business.
I think it's going to do a lot of business. You don't hear a lot of buzz on it right now, but then we're still a ways out from the opening, and there's a lot between it and who knows how these other movies are going to be, how they're going to be responded. So much of it is intangible. Is an audience hungry for a blockbuster? Are they sated by something that just came out? You can only prognosticate and guess. You can never make accurate predictions unless you get lucky, which sometimes you get lucky.
Well, we will be continuing on here this week with Dinosaur Week on XJU, where we challenge the guys to identify famous movie dinosaurs in honor of the upcoming Jurassic World 2 Fallen Kingdom, which, that's a movie. Our review exists. You should go check it out.
Check it out if you want to know what we thought. Roth, that's all my charts. I did a lot of charting this week, and I'm out of charts.
It's mystery charts. I hope we get some more mystery charts.
I'm going to go look for some more unsolved box office mysteries, and maybe I can bring some more to the table next week.
Yeah, you guys let us know in the comments below. Solve the mystery of the mysteries. Where did those Gottis number? Who's such a big Gotti fan? Who loves the Mafia that much? Was it the Mafia? All right.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to know. Don't come look into me. I have no idea.
Don't at me, the Mafia. We will see you next week.